not really. If you'll indulge me, if you would just hold your appreciation till the end of the reading.
No.
It makes it better for me. So if you want to appreciate, you can throw your tomatoes. So I'm going to begin with a poem called Welcome. The poem was originally written in French, and you'll see the connection after I finish what I'm reading. So the poem was written by a man named Jean Follin, and I'll read it in French first. Then W.S. Merwin did a translation of it, and I'll read his translation, and then I'll read my translation of Merwin's translation. So this is called first Follin's version, the original, called Bienvenue. Dans la ferme où Champy, c'est un jour soleil, que l'on attend l'étranger, vêtu de drap noir et fin et coiffé du chapeau haut, il va pousser la barrière et dire « Ami, me voici !» L'âne brouton, le chardon bleu, la jument en robe sombre, le pour buveur de lait maigre, le chien au front étoilé, le chien sensible aux orages, devant lui seront les mêmes qu'ont la dure antiquité. Now, Merwin's version. On the farm, in its full color, it is on a day of bright sunlight that one awaits the stranger. Dressed in a fine black fabric and wearing a top hat, he will push the gate open, saying, "Friends, here I am." The donkey nibbling the blue thistle, the mare in her dark gown, the pig drinking sour milk, the dog with the starred forehead, the cat who can sense a storm before him will be the same as in hard antiquity. And now my translation of Merwin's translation of Follin's poem, Welcome. Some things never change. On a day of dark fabric, when the sun and the dog lay low, a friend calls to talk about fear, a push on a familiar gate, saying, "Here I am." Hardened by the past, he is the donkey stalled. He is the milkless mare. He is the pig stilled. He is the dog homeless. He is the cat without lives. And before him, I say, welcome. Now, the interesting thing about Follin is he was actually a lawyer. And he ended up being a magistrate in Rimbaud's hometown, Charleville. And I consider Rimbaud a soulmate, actually, how bizarre as that sounds. But, even more interestingly, in 1949, he became a member of a writers' club called the Pen Club. So here we are, the pen and pencil. So I couldn't resist. So I started with that poem. So speaking of Rimbaud, I have a series of poems that I wrote sort of in honor of him, connecting with him. I've read his work many, many times. But I have a very special relationship with him, I feel. And this poem is called My Morning Moon. And you know that moon in the morning that you see that's vague up there? It's still there. It's there, but it's very, very light. So, My Morning Moon. The first time we met, the bulbs were shooting and I felt like I found a new frequency. I grabbed you and licked the colors from your limbs, trying to assemble a story. I was a boy, and you were a boy, and there were words and secrets that made us flowers. We sailed rivers and tied to masts. We embarked on a honeymoon. We set the course for lands that had no markings, and the natives crowned us. We struggled with our ropes. We oiled the chains so that we could slip in and out of bondage to each other. We slipped in and out of each other. We were snakes, and our split tongues carved vows into air. Our talk had spines. We were miners, weren't we? We dug for hidden stars, and we found gold in the music of the heaving I despise your love. I love your gold, your sharpened teeth. I never saw them puncture the world, my morning moon. So, memory is a big part of life, and this poem is new, and it's called Memoir. And for those of us who may remember the Supertramp song, the Logical song, that Roger Hodgson wrote, that song has very special meaning to me. And in the chorus, Hodgson says, at night, when all the world's asleep, the questions run so deep for such a simple man. So this poem is after Roger Hodgson. It's called Memoir. I slit a vein to get in deep so that I could see all of it. I said vein, but I meant the tangible shadows. The red eyes and the tired tongue that has tried to tell about holes and caves where my worms sing. Beneath the dark black rot of irises that once were the color of irises. See it across my face where the shame came, where the groping and the tying up and the knife came close to a forced entry. There I am, over there, to the left of where the cement met the skin. I could have used this, the one in which there was a setup, the one with splayed legs. That one is still sharp. When all the world's asleep, dive in, I say to myself. Lurk around the scarred rocks. There's one memory that does lie very deep with me and always comes to the surface. I had a brother who died as an infant. His name was Scott. And the birth and death of Scott had a very subtle effect on my family, which was very small. At the time it was my mother, my father, and me. And I don't know if they think about Scott as often as I do, but I do. And this poem is about the day that my father carried the little white casket to the grave. It's called Saying Goodbye. How do you walk your son to the grave this perverse day of sun and ice? Your steps are short and measured because the box has weight, and these are your last moments together. There may be talking, there may not be. Words are bones without flesh at death. The boy, your son, is flesh and bone, so how could words top that? Heavy and light, body and soul, snow and air, all of these and none of these matter. Will the moon rise? Will the car start? Lay him down. Let the earth spin. While we're in a dark place, this is a poem that I wrote from a very angry place. I wrote this piece in response to this hyper-patriotic, hyper-religious, bigoted, and hateful rhetoric spewed by the likes of Michelle Bachmann. There were 9 teenage suicides in the Anakin-Hennepin School District in Minnesota, which was in her congressional district. She opposed all anti-bullying legislation and supported the school district's policy on the books, but known colloquially as no homo promo. When asked about the suicides, her response was no comment. Of the 9 suicides, 6 were queer youth. I will read all their names plus one, and then the poem. TJ, Aaron, Nick, Cole, Samantha, Kevin, Judy, Justin, Jordan, and Tyler. Tyler was the Rutgers University freshman who threw himself off the Brooklyn Bridge after he was outed by his roommates. And Dave's son, my son but not by blood, was at Rutgers at the time and knew Tyler. This poem is called Surreal Times for Miss Liberty, and I dedicate it to all queer youth. A blue queen at the bottom of a well begs for a lift from Mr. Lincoln, who spots a boy floating from a bridge in Brooklyn, not with wings. A tree sprouting dead from a hillside in Minnesota scratches a boy in the scouts, chewing on a bullet, wanking on a ripped flag. Let's go. Swinging from a thread around his neck, oh liberty, your dim torch. I go on a meditation retreat in New England, and it is a wonderful place for me. It's a silent 8-day retreat, and I spend times at the sea and in the forest. This poem came out of one of those experiences, one of the times that I was there, and Mary Oliver was in my head. I wouldn't say this is dedicated to Mary, but she was in my head because she is a New Englander, and the way she writes and talks about the place, you know that she sees, like I see, so much beauty and something deeper than beauty in the world around me. This is called Nor'easter. It's divided into sections. I arrived at the blue pasture pulled by a storm. My charge was set to swerve and point, to find, to be found, to lose, to become lost in a golden cowrie, a jackfish jaw, the long call of a gull, imagining the beginning of beginnings here at the St. Atlantic. I met a Gloucesterman today. He told me that not everything caught is kept. This is the gospel of the sea. Some fish go back, dead or not. He said, the angel wing is a pectoral fin from a 4-foot cod, most likely thrown back by a crewman. What was her fate? I asked, most likely weeping, lifted by a crow who placed it on a bed of lichen and moss in a grove where I found it. I imagined a fallen angel, damaged and wingless, looking for me. On a path poked by bittersweet, everywhere I turn is home. Everywhere I turn, life is piled upon life. The killdeer skimming, the great blackbacks tearing herring, bodies refined in an early kinship fire. Afternoon. A seal threading the great saint. I followed it until I could follow no further, until it became light. I followed it to another world, touching that sublime instant when two natures intersect. I called to you, bent before a goosefish, asking questions. The Gloucesterman said, there are 5 doves within a sand dollar. Find them. The storm was over, but the great saint still bellowed. On my hike out to the hard cliffs, I looked everywhere for a sand dollar or the broken angel. What I found was the world at rest. So I stayed, Mary, astounded by the deep love that abides there. So we're in love mode now, so let's stay there until the end. These are 2 very short poems. They're called 2 love poems. They're kind of like haikus. Here's a poem about love. Never use adverbs that bring handcuffs. Here's a poem about love. A blizzard hits, then fall. This is a newer poem, and this was just up on truck. I wrote this for my wonderful partner in life, right here, Dave. We live in southern New Jersey, and we live near a lake. And you know what? When I drive to work, sometimes there's a lot of Canadian geese, And for the last few years, I always see two Canadian geese in the same place. And if you ever watch them, they pair up, and one will eat and one will watch. Then they switch. So you'll always see one being very alert while the other one is eating. Sometimes the other one is just sitting, but there's one always very alert. And I drove one day, and I always say to Dave, you know, I really don't write love poems, but it turns out that I actually do. And this is one that, watching the Canadian geese, it made me think of us and what I think what love is. It's called This Is Love. They are lovers, and you've seen them do this. They take turns watching, then feeding, so natural and meaningless. Water birds, trust. I'll watch the sky. You work to build the furnace that we'll need in the bedchamber. They switch, and one will peck for anything in the shape of another day of life. They waddle, they build, they take stock of the size of shadows, the direction of wind. This is love. The attention, moments of work, an abrupt flutter, a turn to say, here we are together, the settling down. And I'd like to close with the piece that closes the series that I wrote, the Bartimaeus poems, about the biblical character Bartimaeus. This piece closes that series. So again, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure reading with you, Kevin and Diane. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you. So this is Grace. I was walking along looking, and I found a twig shaped like a man. I picked it up, but didn't name it. I carried it all day as though it had a secret to tell, and I was the lucky ear. As we walked, I knew that this stick of elements bore many blows. It came to me that we shared everything, seen and unseen. It came to me that this thing of lank and knob died so that I may live with it for this day. He said, looking is different than seeing, and loving is different than all else. Thank you.